Hey, y'all. I've always believed that the shows that we binge and the movies we love are more than just entertainment. They're a window into who we are and who we might become. They're a place to talk about what truly matters. Welcome to Culture First, Democracy Always. I'm Tasha Pierce. Think of me as your favorite auntie who could talk about the latest sci fi flick 1 minute and then get to talking about voter suppression the next. On this podcast, we break down pop culture from the movies and TV shows you love to the books you can't put down to talk about power, talk about freedom, and talk about survival. We'll connect these stories to our current politics and the constant, everyday resistance we all face because culture shapes who we are, and democracy is the freedom to be that person. Culture first, democracy always. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Culture First, Democracy Always. We're going to push along in the Fractured Future arc, where we're analyzing the systems that chip away at our democracy. Last week, we talked Star Trek and the horrors of the internal witch hunt. Today, we're tackling the system that makes the witch hunt possible, the quote-unquote official narrative. We're diving into the X-Files episode, Musings of a Cigarette-Smoking Man. This episode isn't one about alien bodies. It's about who writes the history books. It gives us a peek into the inner life of the show's central villain, the cigarette-smoking man who controls all the hidden truths of our world. He is the ultimate political myth maker. He's the boogeyman that proves that the most powerful control isn't over borders or banks. It's over the story you believe. Of course, we're going to need a roadmap. Here's our plan for today. We will analyze the cigarette-smoking man as the political myth maker, showing how he weaponizes fictional or sanitized narratives to maintain systemic power. Next, we'll look at how this manipulation connects to real-world efforts to sanitize history, especially in our schools and our public discourse. Then we'll discuss how political myth-making frames dissent like anti-capitalism or activism as a threat, diverting attention from real systemic issues. And finally, we'll talk about the single most powerful act of resistance, refusing to let anyone else write your history. Y'all got it? Let's get to it. Part 1. The Anatomy of the Mythmaker. Let's be honest. The cigarette-smoking man is not a soldier. He's a storyteller. He's a man of letters who controls the secret levers of power by deciding what isn't true and what must be believed. He writes novels, but his greatest fiction is the sanitized version of American history that he forces the public to consume. And this episode gives us glimpses into his alleged involvement in everything from the Kennedy assassination to the cover-up of UFOs. But the key isn't whether those specific events happened. The key is the institutional structure that protects the story. The cigarette-smoking man represents the shadowy nexus where government, money, and media power converge to manage the truth. Historically, this has always been a fundamental tool of power. Think about the lost cause mythology that arose after the Civil War. It wasn't enough for the Confederacy to lose. A decades-long narrative had to be constructed to sanitize slavery and glorify the rebellion. This myth was perpetuated through textbooks, through monuments, and media, proving that controlling the past is essential to controlling the future. Our guy, the cigarette-smoking man, operates on the same principle. If you control the narrative, you control the consent of the governed. He manages public perception so effectively that by the time Mulder starts asking questions, the public is already conditioned to believe the official, comfortable lie. This is the first step towards authoritarian control. It isn't just seizing the government, it's seizing the history books. Part 2. Sanitizing history, silencing dissent. Okay, so let's dig into how political myth-making frames dissent as a threat. Our cigarette-smoking man and his committee, the syndicate, have to do two things constantly: sanitize the past and label modern critics as dangerous. Now, sanitizing the past means rewriting history to remove the uncomfortable truths, especially about systemic failures, racial violence, or economic exploitation. This is exactly what we see happening today with book bans and efforts to eliminate critical thinking about America's past from school curricula. When critical race theory or the history of slavery is labeled as divisive or anti-American, that's the cigarette smoking man at work, y'all. They are protecting the myth that the system is perfect and not the children. They're not protecting the children from discomfort. They're protecting the myth. But the biggest political lesson here is how they label modern critics. The cigarette smoking man's system thrives on distracting the public from real issues. So what happens when people start talking about poverty, about wealth inequality, or about systemic racism? Well, the myth makers will label those critiques as anti-capitalist, extremist, anti-Christian bias. This is a deliberate strategy to shift the focus. It's not about fighting the argument. It's about labeling the arguer as a threat to the entire national identity. Now, this move justifies crackdowns and diverts public attention from systemic issues like wealth inequality by forcing people to focus on cultural purity tests. A current example of that would be how the Trump administration is treating Mark Kelly, a decorated war veteran and an astronaut whose only crime was reminding American service members that they do not comply with illegal orders. That crime has gotten the attention of the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and they are now performing a what? Witch hunt. That's right, a witch hunt against Mark Kelly. And why did I get so excited about witch hunt? Because last week we talked about witch hunts, and today we're talking about myth making. Because there was nothing wrong with the advice that Mark Kelly gave to American service members. There's only something wrong with the people who are using that as a means to make Mark Kelly a criminal. So think about a historical event or a person whose story seems to be constantly changing or being fought over in your community, like a local monument or a figure in history textbooks or stuff like that. What is the comfortable official myth that's being protected? And who benefits from that sanitized version of the truth? I would love to hear from y'all. Let me know on social media or in an email. Part 3. The fragility of truth and the power of memory. Despite the vastness of the cigarette smoking man's power, the ability to kill presidents and cover up alien invasions and all of that, he's got a lot of power, right? The show still teaches us that the story is always fragile. It requires constant energy and endless deception to maintain. Every single lie is a potential point of failure. This fragility is where resistance lies. Mulder's entire job isn't to expose the aliens, it's to disrupt the narrative. His skepticism is the sand in the cigarette smoking man's engine. The most powerful act of civic courage is refusing to forget. Cigarette smoking men rely on public amnesia. They need us to accept the convenient story and stop digging. Of course, this means we must channel our own inner Mulder and Scully. We have to be a skeptic. Scully, she demands proof, she follows the money, and she relies on documentation. Don't accept a convenient lie just because it's comfortable. And we got to be a disruptor like Mulder. We need to refuse to accept the official story. Ask the inconvenient questions, amplify the whistleblowers, and seek out independent journalism, y'all. Because in the face of powerful forces trying to rewrite history and manage public perception, the simple act of preserving memory, your family stories, your local histories, the archives of activist groups, that becomes the ultimate tool of resistance. We must become the keepers of the honest narrative. It reminds me of a post on social media where one of the commenters on this particular post said, the people today who are complaining about slavery and the atrocities of slavery were never slaves. And I wondered in the comments, I wonder if they realize that the people who were actually slaves were our grandparents, our great-grandparents. Those stories, our family Bibles, were passed down to us so that we wouldn't forget and we would not let that happen again. The only story that myth makers can't control is the one you choose to remember and the one you choose to share. And I'm not going to hold y'all too long today. The X-Files offered a necessary warning. The monsters aren't just under the bed and in the closets. They're often the ones signing the bills. The erosion of our democracy starts when we surrender our critical thinking and then we get comfortable with the myth. Our actions is to continue to be an active keeper of the truth. Reject the sanitized history. Question the narrative that labels honest dissent as a threat. Don't let anyone else write your history. When they tell you that most of the political violence that we're seeing today is committed by the left, don't let them sell that story to you. You can see with your own eyes who's committing political violence in larger numbers. I'm not saying that nobody on the left is doing it. I'm saying in numbers, it is right-leaning people who have been radicalized. Don't let these people rewrite our history. Don't let these people tell us that some of the slaves were happy to be slaves. Don't let these people rewrite our story. Question the narrative that labels honest dissent as a threat. Question the narrative that labels honesty as dissent. Do not let anybody else write our history. All right, next week, we're diving into one of the most essential episodes of the arc. It is Star Trek Deep Space Nine's past tense. I love that episode. It's a two-parter. So we'll be talking about how systemic neglect in the housing crisis leads directly to authoritarian segregation and the creation of no-go zones in our cities. It's a heavy episode, but a vital conversation. And as always, I want to remind you that if you want the deeper dive, the historical analysis of myth making, the articles on propaganda in education, and the tools to resist ideological loyalty tests, this is a perfect time to subscribe to the newsletter before our format changes. Yes, changes are ahead, but for now, you can join the link to join the community for the Thursday newsletter drop in the show notes. You can also connect with me on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram at Culture First Always, so we can keep the conversation going and continue to build this community together. Because per usual, Culture First, Democracy always. I hope this episode gave you a new way to look at the stories around you. It's so easy to feel alone in this work, but remember, there's a whole community of grown folks out here connecting the dots. If you're not already subscribed, my newsletter drops every Thursday and provides a deeper look at these themes. It's like an email from a friend who's just a little obsessed with connecting culture and politics. You can find the link in the show notes. And also, let's connect on social media too. I'm on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram, and I just love continuing these conversations with you all throughout the week. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday for the next episode. And I'm Tasha Pierce. Culture first, democracy always.